William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
And good afternoon and welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with the late Patti Fink. Lerone took the week off because he's not feeling well. I think Gabrielle has run him down.
So, we'll get better.
Poor Lerone.
Well, and I mean, it's not, when you have a toddler in school, you get every germ known to man, so I'm surprised he's not sick more often.
Yeah, he is. Plenty often.
Okay.
Our guest today is Erin Moore, political pundit. We're going to talk about... we have an election coming up or something?
Heard that.
Yeah. Well, did either of you watch Meet the Press today?
Oh, my God.
No, actually, I try not to. But we record it. It comes on later today, so we usually record it later.
Okay, so Chuck Todd lets Rudy Giuliani get away with anything and everything about how Hillary isn't prepared and, you know, all that kind of nonsense. Or she's very prepared, but we don't like what she's done, you know, that kind of nonsense.
She's over-prepared.
But how qualified Trump is. And let the whole thing with his taxes, let that completely go.
Did he really?
Then Robbie Mook, yes. Then Robbie Mook, well, not completely. They discussed it, kind of. Then Robbie Mook, who's Hillary's campaign chair, he comes on, and he says to him that because he asked her, the question was, why isn't she ahead by 50 points after what happened last week? Now, I agree, but the way he asked it, it was like he was setting the bar so high that if she's not ahead by 50 points, and if she doesn't win by 50 points...
she's losing.
So she's losing. That somehow Donald Trump is... Now, think about this 50-point gap. It's never happened in American history.
Oh, yeah.
There's never been an election.
Yeah, I mean, Reagan absolutely blew.
No. I'm not talking about electoral college. I'm talking about in popular vote. It wasn't
popular vote.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was not a 75% landslide victory. I don't think that threshold has been crossed. It would have to be 25 to 75%. No.
Well, she is, and they showed this week a polling in the city of Detroit, Michigan, and Hillary's like 90. And he's at 0.
Well, I get
between
that.
the undecideds and the couple of the third parties, they took up the other 10%, but he is at 0.
I mean, the answer to your question is that if the people that were voting for Trump cared about things like, facts or performances or qualifications or tax returns or anything like that, if they cared about any of that stuff, they wouldn't be voting for him in the first place. So, I mean, that's...
okay, I have another if they cared about.
Yeah.
Evangelicals are pro-Trump, right?
Allegedly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
they're floundering, but yeah.
He's probably the most unreligious person to have run in years.
Yeah.
And actually, Hillary is one of the most religious people to have run in years.
Absolutely.
She's a very religious person.
Right.
She keeps it to herself, but she's a very religious person.
Right.
So if somebody being religious is a value that you care about, wouldn't you be supporting her?
Only if it's convenient.
Okay.
I love what...
I'm confused by that one.
Their litmus tests are now more important than their religious beliefs. Anti-abortion, anti-gay. And he claims to be those two things. But you're right. He is hateful. He is not religious. He is demeaning. He is about as unchristian as they get.
And the little cracker.
Huh?
When he said he went to a church and had the little cracker.
Oh, he had the little cracker. Oh, and what was it? Timothy, whatever the Bible verse he tried to quote.
Oh, 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians, right. Anyway,
There were 2 Corinthians sitting around.
sitting in a tree, Kissing. So yeah, I agree with you, but they're litmus tests. The conservative rallying points that were originally, in my belief, only meant to rally the troops and raise money, have now become more important than what they believe.
I loved what John Fugel said, the comic. He said, the people who believe that Obama is a Muslim are the same people who believe that Trump is a Christian.
Yes. That is a very good way to put it. And of course we're talking, the people in front of the microphones that are publicly vowing to support Trump. We're not talking about the everyday Christian voter out there, because I think they're struggling. I think they're having a real internal debate right now, and I think that right now is the undecided voter is the evangelical Christians, who have always had someone who they could back, or at least get to say publicly that they were.
And I got it when they backed Cruz.
Yeah.
Don't like Cruz, but I understood it. No, I understood why they were backing him.
Yeah, me too.
I don't believe that his own religious beliefs are fake or just for the camera. I think that those are his beliefs. Yeah. And I get it when they supported him. I don't get their support of Trump. And I also don't get NBC's support of Chuck Todd. He's horrible. He's the worst journalist on TV who is not on Fox News.
Yeah.
Oh, he's horrible.
Well, Dick Gregory was not all that either.
He was terrible, but this one's worse.
I know. I'm just saying.
They need Joy Reid or Rachel Maddow would be good. I think she's fair.
Yeah.
I think she's absolutely fair.
No, I want Joy Reid to stay on MSNBC where she can flamethrow.
Yeah. She's good at it.
She's good at it. Yeah, but
I'm not saying it has to be somebody who's liberal. I'm saying it has to be somebody who's fair.
No,
you don't.
That's what we're saying too.
And that's what. But it doesn't have to be somebody, who's. It just needs to be somebody who's just
a good reporter.
A good reporter. That's the way to put it. Good reporter.
He sent a tweet out this week after the debate, the night of the debate, that said that Trump was obviously not prepared and Hillary was oddly over-prepared at times.
What does that mean?
Over-prepared.
What
And
does that mean?
I tweeted him back and said, I want my president to be over-prepared.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Yes.
If not all the times.
I mean,
what does that mean
I don't know. How can you be over-prepared to be president of the United States? I don't get it.
It means he knows too many of the world leaders?
I think, yeah, right. And what Aleppo is. I think at this point, you're Trump because you're Trump. There's no reason for it. There is no reason for it. Mm-hmm. You cannot state a reason for it. You cannot say, I believe in him because.
Well, I think a lot
unless you just out and out tell the truth, which I haven't heard, and say, he gives me permission to feel the bad things I feel, because he's worse than me.
Well, and a lot of people, undecideds, because the two of them are so similar. I don't like either one. Best comment was on Saturday Night Live last night. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the, who do you call it, who plays Bernie?
Oh, Larry Sanders.
Larry Sanders. Larry Sanders. Larry David. Larry David.
Excuse me.
Okay, so Senator Clinton is the prune juice of this election. You might not like her, but if you don't take her now, you'll be, you'll be clogged with crap for a very, very long time. I can't read my handwriting.
Oh, wow.
Very, very.
Wow.
It's the most accurate statement I've heard about this election. How can you be undecided in this election?
I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. Unless you're one of those conservatives that says, it's such anathema to me to vote for a Democrat. I'm having a hard time with it, but I'm going to have to because I really can't stand this guy. And I'm struggling with that, and I'm going to consider myself undecided until I actually mark
Have you
ballot.
actually heard a conservative person put it in those words and think it through that clearly?
No.
Well,
okay.
Yes. Yes, I
have
have
you?
actually.
Okay.
BBC, which I listen to a lot, was interviewing undecideds in Indiana? No, Kansas. Mm-hmm. And it was put that clearly. It literally was. It's like, I cannot have never and will not vote for a Democrat, but I don't know that I can vote for Donald Trump. And one woman they talk to is going to vote for Hillary, and one woman they talk to is going to vote for Trump. So,
And did either of them consider Gary Johnson?
no.
Why? They feel it's throwing their vote out, or?
Well,
Because Aleppo.
yeah. I mean,
What is Aleppo?
I think he disqualified himself with that statement, period. If you don't know what Aleppo is, you don't need to be running for president.
And in that town hall, he's sitting there, Gary Johnson, not knowing what Aleppo was, and he couldn't name a world leader that he thought was his favorite. He goes, well, former president of Mexico. Well, which 100 of those are we talking about?
Right.
And then Governor Weld, who's the running mate for VP, says, I think Hillary's the most qualified person who's ever run for president.
Well, and Gary Johnson...
Yes, but she's too prepared to be president.
Oh, she's overprepared, yeah.
She's overqualified.
You don't want to be overqualified and overprepared to be president of the United States.
I mean, the poor Bernie people, they're having trouble latching on to Hillary, and I get that. I really do get that. But at this point, it's just being obstinate and holding your breath until you turn blue and get what you want. You're not going to get Bernie. Get over it. And Jill Stein, that they're hanging their hat on, some of them, small percentage of, God bless her. She's another dumb one out there.
She's been having
days.
Gary Johnson moments.
And Gary Johnson, well, I'll just vote for the independent, for the libertarian. Well, he believes in fracking and no minimum wage and, I mean, all kinds of bad things. I don't see how you can, if you truly believe what you believe, I don't see how you can vote for him. If it's not just a personality thing, you cannot vote for Gary Johnson.
Well, I was just going to say, so have the elections become that much of a personality thing? I remember back in 2000, between Gore and Bush, the question is, which one would you rather have a beer with?
Right.
Now, my answer was, I'd rather have a beer with the smart guy, not the alcoholic. That's just me. But actually, that would be my answer.
Strategery. Lockbox.
The presidential race should not become a beauty contest. It has, and frankly, I got to say, I blame the media for that. It all started with Gary Hart when their personal lives and how they looked became more important than who they were and what they could do and what they said.
Well, actually, it was beyond that. It was Muskie.
Yeah, you're right.
When Muskie had some therapy, he went to a therapist.
So,
and even before that, in the he had to drop out as vice presidential candidate, and they McGovern's running mate.
Whose name?
That was Muskie.
No.
Oh, he became the.
No,
that's right.
no.
McGovern.
It was somebody else.
Yeah.
We'll look it up at the break.
Yeah.
But anyway, I really do. I'm going to go back to Gary Hart for this. I really do think that moment with Gary Hart is when it became okay for the media to comment on it. I mean, it was always an issue before. And they would be so ashamed that, oh my God, I have had therapy, therefore I'm a weak human being because I'm not manly enough and I'm going to drop out. But with Hart, it became okay for the media to become the judge and jury on it. And it's just been, I'm going to use the slippery slope thing, it's just been downhill ever since. Now it's down to like, what are they wearing? What do they have for breakfast? Who do you want to have a beer with?
How much they smile.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that's because she's a woman. And women are used to those kinds of critiques. I mean, you can stand up and give a disarmament speech to the UN, but the headline will be what that person was wearing, if she's a woman.
Well, we're used to it. It doesn't mean it's right.
I'm not saying it's right. So I think a lot of that is because Hillary is a woman. If they don't make those same comments about Trump. It's like the fat guy who says a woman is too fat.
Christie got very angry, especially when he first was running for governor. People were criticizing his weight.
Right.
Well, the question isn't how he looks, it's whether he's actually healthy or not.
Right.
You can be overweight and still be healthy.
Well, he's morbidly obese, or was.
And so I thought that was a legitimate question, not the way it was asked.
Right.
But the real question was, and are you healthy, or are you likely to have a massive coronary 2 months into the job? Turns out, he seems to be fairly healthy.
Well, he's had surgery, too, but yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. The question is, are you healthy? But with women, it is often criticized with like, oh my God, did you see her outfit? You know, if she's making those kind of decisions, how can she decide on, you know, on war, going to war or not? You know, really?
And I want to go back to the original, which guy would you rather have a... Thank you, Eagleton is the one who dropped out. And he had something that probably today could have been controlled with, you know, just a daily medication. So, but he had gone through shock treatment and several other things. Yeah.
Which was probably state of the art at the time.
Right.
For, you know, we've come a long way since those days.
Going back to the idea of which one would you rather have a beer with, the real answer was, you know what, neither of these guys are going to have beer with you. Which one do you want running the government? Which one has policies that you agree with? So while Gary Johnson, there's something that I like about him, if the choice was him and Trump, like you said, fracking and other policies.
There are policies I disagree with him on, but if the choice were him and the fascist, I'd vote for him.
And if it's a choice between his policies and Hillary's policies, I don't care whether you like her or not.
Oh, I'm Hillary all the way.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about a lot of these people who are so undecided, they can't figure out which one would be a better president or which one to...
After the Libertarian town hall the other night, somebody tweeted...
12 people watching.
Yeah, somebody tweeted, Gary Johnson's making stoners look bad.
Well, and the thing I find the most reprehensible, and again, I've said this before on the show, I'll say it again, I blame Sarah Palin for opening up the discussion of it's okay to be bigoted, it's okay to be racist, and it's okay to say it. And when it became okay to say it, now it's okay for our candidate, not the vice presidential candidate, not some senator in a backwater, not some sheriff in Arizona. It's okay for a presidential candidate to be saying things like, oh, she's a heifer, she gained 10 pounds. Really?
And that's what people are saying they like about him, actually.
He tells it like it is.
Well, what is he telling like it is? We need to take a break. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet, here in the studio with two women whose appearance today I'm just not going to criticize, even though I should be.
Did you see what he's wearing?
I have seen what the two of them are wearing. They're in T-shirts. Oh, my God. We'll be back with more Lambda Weekly right after this.
Hi, this is Patti Fink, and you're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM.
And I'm David Taffet, and Patti Fink is sitting across from me with Erin Moore. We're talking about politics and how this election is going. Patti, you said you saw an article in Politico.
Yeah, this is an interesting article about the psychiatry behind, or the psychological pathology, I would say, behind a Trump supporter.
That's not a personality, that's a diagnosis.
And Dr. David Dunning has, who's famous for this theory, wrote this op-ed in Politico, and one of the reasons that he said that a lot of Trump supporters have such incredible cognitive dissonance, meaning they can stand there and say, well, we treat women with respect, and have some filthy T-shirt on that says, you know, derogatory things about women, really awful things, and they don't see it. They just don't see the difference, like how they don't register.
You know, same thing with Trump's attempt to attack Bill Clinton and have that be negative toward Hillary. It's the mentality there is that all of Trump's infidelities were not his fault. It was Ivana's fault, and then it was Marla's fault. And if he strays from his current wife, it'll be Melania's fault. Same thing with, what's his name, former Speaker of the House, 3 wives and
Newt Gingrich.
Newt Gingrich
Is one of his surrogates talking about this issue.
Well, of course.
And Giuliani.
And Giuliani, who brought his adultering girlfriend into Gracie Mansion.
Right.
I mean, well, of course it's their fault. They didn't keep me happy. Mm-hmm. Really? Mm-hmm. Wow.
And it infuriates them that Hillary, no matter what, has had bad patches during her marriage, but she's had one marriage. All of her children, all of her child are from one marriage.
Yes.
They raised her together. they go to visit their grandchild together.
And he's had 5 kids by 3 different baby mamas.
Trump. Yeah.
But that infuriates them, and somehow it's the woman's fault.
Right.
Which is that very biblical of them?
But you know, if he tries to bring this up, and he would be...
He's already brought it up.
I know, but he tries to bring it up in the next debate.
Yeah.
All she has to say, I think, is, I've been absolutely faithful through 40 years of marriage to my spouse.
Can you say this?
Have you? Yeah. Have you?
Yeah.
Or can you say the same thing?
Yeah.
And if he pushes it, because he won't let things drop.
Well, and even if she hasn't been, it's a non-issue.
Her answer, though, is, yeah, we've had rough patches. We worked them out.
And everybody in America can relate to that.
What marriage hasn't had rough patches?
I don't...
Wait, hold on. Except for yours, Patti.
Right. Well, probably because we've only been married for 6 months.
In the previous 15 years, we did have rough.
Of course, it's not normal for a relationship not to have rough patches. Of course, you have rough patches.
I don't get going back to Patti's cognitive dissonance thing. I don't get how he can even raise the issue. I mean, he is the very embodiment.
That's a Republican thing to do. And when I say Republican thing, in the Bush administration, you turn it to the opposite of what it is. Remember the Clear Skies Initiative that allowed more pollution? The Clean Water Act, which allowed more pollution in the water.
Or somebody who's never served a term in the military criticizing Kerry for...
Yeah,
for lying about his service.
Or No Child Left Behind.
Right.
Look who's saying No Child Left Behind, the guy who was left behind.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So again, we're not having a conversation talking to each other here. Trump thinks that this will resonate, and it will among certain people who believe that the bad things that happen in a marriage are the woman's fault, the good things are the man's fault, the woman should defer to the man, and it's her job to keep him happy. That's the mentality that's coming out there that we don't even understand.
But,
and there's more to it than that, though, I think.
Go ahead.
Back to this cognitive dissonance. There have been studies that we've talked about on the air about how the conservative brain reacts differently than the liberal brain. That conservatives are hypersensitive to fear, and that's why fear-mongering really lights up their brain activity, because they take it so seriously. They're like, the anxiety from it is what they live on, basically. But this guy, David Dunning, he's part of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which he says is taking place right now in America for all of these conservatives who are following Trump and blind to all of his infidelities, his immoral behavior, his fraudulent business practices, his failed business practices, all of those things, his racism, all of it. And they just simply take his word for it, and telling them facts, they don't register, they don't see the difference because they're still allegiant to him. And when he said, I could walk out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and not lose a voter, he really meant that, and it's pretty true. So the Dunning-Kruger effect explains that the problem isn't just that they are misinformed; it's that they are completely unaware that they are misinformed. So, as they put it later, the knowledge and intelligence that are required to be good at a task are often the same qualities needed to recognize that one is not good at that task. And if one lacks such knowledge and intelligence, one remains ignorant that one is not good at the task. This includes political judgment. Essentially, they're not smart enough to realize they're dumb.
I agree with that on a lot of his supporters, but there are people in my now inherited family that are voting for Trump that know better. And I just think some of it is just coming out of such frustration. Like we had after Bush, I would have voted for anything after Bush, just to get somebody different in there. Luckily we had great candidates. It's the old "I survived Bush, you'll survive Obama" thing. I think they're so frustrated with the last 8 years that they'd vote for anybody who's running as a Republican. Some of them. I agree with Patti that a lot of them actually No matter what you say, no matter how logical you try and be, no matter how bad he does, no matter how good she does, they're going to vote for Trump, period.
But I think you're talking about, have you ever tried to have a discussion about current events with somebody who watches Fox News?
Well, they can.
Yeah.
And they're so convinced that the information that you have from multiple news sources is wrong, and that their information from this one news source that isn't really even a news source is correct.
Some say, some said this, and so therefore it's fact.
Yeah. Some say, it could have been the guy in the parking lot, but some say. Well, and what I was going to say before Patti got into the Dunning effect, which I really do believe is a lot of this, is he's turning the conversation, he's turning the debate, it's working, because we're talking about it, into a discussion about cheating and infidelities about presidents. We're not talking about foreign policy and domestic unrest and, tax reform or criminal justice reform. We're not talking about those things. He has reduced this debate down to, she started it. And that's ridiculous. We are better as a nation, we are better as a populace than this. And why we are listening to him at all, I don't know, except that we're all scared to death that he might actually do something.
Okay, so she started it, and here's something she started. She released her tax returns.
Long time ago.
And she released her tax returns because Bill was running for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't. Until today.
No.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't release them.
Well, they
got released.
Well,
what happened?
Pieces of them got released. Not a federal tax return, but a New York state income tax, a New Jersey filing, and a Connecticut filing for state income taxes, which you have to. They kind of, there's some intersectionality there.
The state return begins with the final line on the federal return.
Right.
So that gives you an idea where the person stands. His stood at minus $917 million for the year that was not released.
1995.
And that was in 1995. What it did reveal was some information behind the practical collapse of the casino industry in New Jersey. Because
as it related to Trump.
No. By his doing that became such a huge portion of the casino industry. Atlantic City's a lot smaller than Vegas, so when 3 hotels are $1 billion in debt, that was a huge dent because it was taking away from the profitable hotels, and they were going bankrupt too.
It's just it belies so much of what he's been saying he is, which is 1, a successful businessman,
Mm-hmm.
2, that he has paid taxes, and 3, that there's nothing to hide in his tax returns.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 things right there is what he's been banking on. Believe me. He always says, believe me. There's nothing very, I would release my tax returns, but, we're going under an audit. He's been under audit for 20 years.
Well, but the other thing that he said was, oh, no, they're so complicated, people wouldn't understand them.
Right.
Just because he doesn't
One of the
understand
things
them.
that I thought was interesting was his accountant, who the Times did speak to. This was a New York Times story. It's front page, main story in the New York Times this morning. One of the things that the accountant said, who's like 80 years old and retired in Florida, but they got through to him, he said when Trump and Ivana would come in, Trump, who knows more about tax policy than you can imagine, he's the biggest expert, he never even asked the question. It was always Ivana who had the question.
She had lots of questions,
apparently.
Every time.
Yeah. Because
they have to both sign their name on the form.
Now, because they both had to sign their name on the bottom at the time, those tax returns belong to Donald and Marla,
right?
Who was the wife at the time. Could it have been Marla who said, they're my tax returns, I'll release what I want to release?
Could have been.
Could have been. Wouldn't that be great?
Have you seen this
I
thing?
guess she'll be off the company payroll, won't she?
It's all right.
Well, they're already kind of just like moving Tiffany out. I mean, they never talk about the daughter Tiffany that he had with Marla Maples. Mm-hmm. But there's a thing trending on Twitter now called last time Trump paid taxes. I tweeted one last night. Last time Trump paid taxes, Meryl Streep got her first Oscar nomination.
Oh, wow.
It's really entertaining if you want to go there. But you know what I think is really interesting is a lot of people may not realize that Trump's mentor, when she was talking in the debate about how he was sued by the Justice Department for racial discrimination in his apartment buildings in New York, at the time, his attorney and his greatest mentor, he said, was Roy Cohn. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're LGBT, you may remember Roy Cohn as the closeted guy who, in fact, died of HIV and AIDS, who was the attorney helping Joseph McCarthy of the McCarthy hearings.
Defended Joseph McCarthy, yeah.
And was on those panels and where they blacklisted people in Hollywood and called everybody a communist.
I thought you were going to go elsewhere with that. I thought you were going to say, these are lesbian speaking, gay man speaking, one of the main characters in Angels in America.
Yeah, exactly.
I go Broadway, you go...
We go politics.
We go politics, yeah. So if you remember Roy Cohn in Angels in America, he was a prominent character, and there've been lots of films about him. But this is the guy that taught Trump how to behave in the business world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they became friends in New York, evidently, and Trump was young and Cohn was older, obviously, but he's got this slash and burn, take no prisoners, and I'm sorry, if he wins the presidency by any fluke of the imagination, he's going to turn the country into a Hooters. I mean, you'll get...
A fascist Hooters.
A fascist Hooters. You'll get your chicken wings, but, you know... And it's... I mean, there's all kinds of reports. There's no shortage of reports about sexism, racism, but primarily sexism, I have to say. You know, where he wanted to fire workers at a golf course he owned that weren't pretty enough.
By his book.
By his judgment, yeah.
On his 1 to 10 scale.
So I don't know. I don't know who other than repressed white men can vote for this guy. There'll be taco trucks on every corner.
Let's go to the debate, which was, it seems like it was a long time ago. That was Monday.
Yeah.
There were several things. First of all, and I'm going to skip around a little bit, but you were talking about how people look. He tried to attack Hillary for the way she looks. Again, if you're looking at the two of them and comparing how they look, which one's more attractive? They're both older. It's the oldest pairing in a presidential race in history.
Well, he looks like a cartoon.
Well, and the age is why a lot of millennials are having trouble connecting, because neither one of them speaks to that generation. You know, everybody got used to kind of a youthful Obama speaking to him, but as far as looks go, I mean, it's a non-factor. Who the heck cares?
So he attacked her stamina.
Oh, backstage.
And he said stamina. He kept saying it over and over, and we just said, just go ahead and say penis.
But what does the stamina have to do with anything? If you don't have stamina, you're not going to look energized. Every criticism of that debate was he was great for 10 minutes and then he was worn out.
He was done, yeah.
He had no stamina. She had a great answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Her answer was, okay, next time you go to 112 countries, then we'll talk about it.
Sit in a hearing for 9 hours.
Yeah. 11 hours.
11 hours, excuse me, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, she was ready for that one, obviously. She overprepared David. I'm sorry.
Well, here's what they mean by overprepared. He had some zingers. She had the comeback.
Yeah.
She wasn't supposed to really know ahead of time what he was going to say.
He is perplexed that she's not a dumb broad, because all women are dumb broads, and everybody that he's ever been with who's had the plastic surgery and been his wife has been a dumb broad, and she's just not a dumb broad, and he doesn't know what to do with people that aren't dumb broads, so he's going to call her a dumb broad.
Well, what other business has he had for years other than his building business? He's
Casinos.
owned, casinos.
Wines, vodka, airlines, steaks.
Magazines.
And Miss Universe.
Miss Universe.
Well,
now, I'm not criticizing the women who are competing for a scholarship.
Well, the asterisk on those other businesses is they've all failed.
But other than that,
yeah.
And Miss Universe hasn't. But that's who he's used to dealing with, beauty pageant contestants,
right,
who, even if they're not dumb, have to act dumb in front of him,
or look a certain way.
And look a certain way.
Yeah.
There's a fascinating article, I can't remember which publication it was in, Washington Post or New York Times, I think, talking about the transformation for Hillary Clinton during the debate. From the beginning of the debate until the end, she figured out how to deal with him.
Yeah.
Because early on, he got away with saying that, he was good for the blacks, quote, the blacks, when she wasn't, and she really didn't come back really strongly against that. But boy, by the end, she knew when to be quiet. She knew when to, like at one point she just said, well, and Lester Holt said, well, what's your thought? And she said, well, just listen to what we just heard.
Well, yeah, and that was after his seemingly hour-long, although it was probably just a few minutes, rant about the birtherism stuff. And she just looked at him and let him go.
Sure.
And watched him, never interrupted, never did anything. And that, I think, wasn't that when she did her shimmy? I don't know, but
it was several times.
He said she was blame me for everything. He says, why not?
Yeah, why not? But yeah, the after the birther rant, I think she even exclaimed, "Wow!"
Yeah. What we just heard.
But you know what? I kind of get that. She's never debated him before. We think of that, of them knowing each other just because she'd never been on stage with him before. He debated, but he was debating the Republican PAC. She debated, but she was debating Bernie. Those two hadn't debated each other. When you and I get together here in the studio, we just fall right into it. I don't come in thinking, okay, what is Patti going to act like today? I know. At 11:45 every day for the last 16 years, what have you done? 11:45, you call me, I pick up the phone. I don't even say, hi, are you running a little bit late? I just say, hi, you're running late, and you just laugh, and we know each other.
Yeah.
They don't know each other, and she didn't know which Trump was going to show up.
Right.
And
nobody did.
Right. So she was prepared for both. Took her a few minutes to figure out which Trump was there.
Well, and Patti was talking about, and maybe you can talk about this a little more, but somebody was asking one of his campaign staff, well, is he going to prepare for the next debate? And he goes, no, he prepared for this one. Mm-hmm. Well, is he going to run through, scenarios and study up on answers and stuff? Oh, no, he did for this one. Mm-hmm. So that's the best Trump we've got.
Yeah, that's the most prepared. So he has a wall for prepared. I mean, he hits the wall, it's done.
Shiny.
We'll see. The next one is next Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see then. We need to take a break. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet, here in the studio with the late Patti Fink, and our guest is Erin Moore.
This is Rollins Gilliland, and I'm listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3, and darn glad to be doing it.
And you're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. Last night was Black Tie Dinner. Greg Louganis made an interesting announcement when he was speaking.
He's not gay?
No, he is. And he's working with the city of Dallas and made this announcement, first time announced, that the city of Dallas is putting in a good bid to host the gay games in 2022.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's going to be
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, it's going to be in Paris in 2018. It was in Cleveland in 2014, and it goes back and forth. They had to do something basically
for not getting the Republican convention last year, so, this year, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we get the gay games, we could potentially then, venue-wise and preparation-wise, pretty easily slide into the Olympics. If we've identified a velodrome and, all these different things that you need.
I worked with Laura Miller last time we were going to put a bid in for the Olympics, and it was a terrible bid. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of my jobs on that committee was to read all the bids. That one, I said to her, we don't have to work real hard because we're not going to get it. And we didn't. I mean, it was a terrible bid. We didn't have the venues we have now either.
When I was living in New Orleans, they didn't get a bid to do the Olympics, obviously, but they did the preheats, whatever those are called. Me and my sports knowledge. And I went and watched a bunch of them. Like, they had some of the elimination soccer matches, and they had some of the elimination track and field events. And I mean, so even if we don't get the actual Olympics after we build all these facilities, we can still use them for other events. And I think we're getting the gay softball tournament too here, aren't we? Or
we had it.
recently.
Yeah.
2 years, not
2
this
years
year,
ago.
the year
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's going to
We're
come
building
back
a
again.
reputation, yes.
Yeah.
Yay. So how was Black
Tie? It was one of the tightest programs. All of the speakers were good. Connie Britton she was fabulous. Deborah Messing was charming, and she said, I've never won an award like this one before, and she said it means so much to me.
Good.
She was just very sweet and very genuine about it. Have you seen Deborah Messing and the whole cast of Will and Grace got together? They did a 9-minute video for Hillary.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, I heard about it. I haven't seen it.
You have to go see it. It's on YouTube, and it's just very funny. Of course, Karen has just gotten back from Mar-a-Lago, and she's all for Trump. And it's very funny.
If you haven't been paying attention to Deborah Messing through the last year, she has been amazing for Hillary. She's been out in Iowa. I mean, this is grassroots stuff. Doing like parades and campaigning, and
she talked about how important it is for her and for all of us. And she said for the next month she's going to be on the road with Hillary.
Excellent.
So.
Yeah, she's really worked hard.
Yeah.
I mean, in ways that a lot of it doesn't always bring a star event. She's working hard.
And Connie Britton was talking about she has a new son who's 5 years old and black, and how much equality means to her. It's not just black-white equality. Equality's equality. It's for everybody. It's for gay or lesbian or transgender, and all those rights are important. Yeah. And she can't protect her son if people don't have their rights. And really a nice, heartfelt speech.
Nice.
Stephen Pounders was wonderful.
And well-deserved.
So deserving, yeah.
Yeah. He's worked for years. And
huge pioneer.
It was just a nice, tight program. Deborah Cox was fantastic when she performed. She did a Mariah Carey imitation that was
wow.
I mean, she was great. And Todrick he's fabulous too. He's going to Broadway to star in Kinky Boots. She's going to Broadway to star in The Bodyguard, but it's going to be here before it goes to Broadway, I believe. So we'll have a chance to see her. She is...
She who?
Deborah Cox.
Oh, good.
She is just wonderful.
Okay, excellent.
So she is wonderful. Anyway, we're talking a little bit about the election.
Yes.
I don't know that we'll have time for another full show on the election before the election.
Right. Well, and I have to throw this out there as a duly authorized deputy registrar. The last day to register to vote is National Coming Out Day.
Which
October
is?
11th.
October 11th.
And
so if you are not registered to vote, please find someone who will register you to vote. You can go online and request the form. You can go into the Dallas County Elections Office Stemmons and register. There's lots of events coming up. The National Night Out is this Tuesday. If there's one in your neighborhood, most of them will have voter registrars.
And Gay Day at the Fair, where they'll be doing a lot of voter registration, that's next Sunday.
Yes.
Unofficial Gay Day at the Fair.
The unofficial official one is the 9th. And then there's another one today, but that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
But the October 9th debate, there's also a vice presidential debate on Tuesday night that you can go to the Roundup and watch.
It's sponsored by Stonewall.
And you can go to the presidential debate on Sunday the 9th. And one of the interesting things that may come up is in the debate is that Bill and Hillary's 41st wedding anniversary is on National Coming Out Day, October 11th. Mm-hmm. Also the birthday of Dallas County Sheriff Lupe Valdez.
Did you see what she got as a present from her?
Yes.
Lindsay gave her a Tesla.
A Tesla.
Yes. That was pretty cool.
Front page of the morning news, because she had just come out of her interview, her endorsement interview. She's up for re-election, and there's her girlfriend with the new car right outside the...
that was pretty special.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to go back to Trump a little bit and some of the things he said in the debate. I guess it was Hillary who brought it up about how, he's not this brilliant businessman. It was his father's business that he continued. Right. And no. So I just got a small loan for my father. So what I wanted to know, Erin, when you started your business, how many $1 million did your father give you?
Oh, huge amount.
And
14 million, like Trump?
You turned it into how many billion? Well, not so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna quote Richard Branson on this. He says, "Making $1 million on an airline is easy. You start out with $1 billion." So.
Or as Robert Reich points out, if he had taken that money and invested it in stocks and bonds and other market tools, he would have, well over billions and billions by now, instead of losing a whole
without
bunch.
having to do anything.
Right. He could have just not done anything and been, incredibly filthy rich, even though he's claims to be such this, this billionaire, which most people believe is not true. Who, because there's no evidence that he's that rich.
Well, we don't know because he won't release his tax returns.
He's wealthy in the property he owns. I don't have a gold tower. It's so gold that you can't even look at the damn thing.
But he says that his wealth, part of his wealth is his brand, and he decides what his brand is worth. So on any given day, it could be $2 million, it could be $2 billion, it could be $8 billion, it could be.
But that's not a real value because what would somebody pay for it? And apparently his hotel bookings this year are down by 50%. Except in New York and Las Vegas, where they're down 70%. That was the statistics I found online this week. How true they are and how current they are, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Forbes magazine said this week that they don't even talk to him about when they do their rankings because it's all crap. Well, they don't believe a word he said and never have because he makes it up. He makes it all up.
Have you watched The Manchurian Candidate, the movie? Ever?
I've seen it years and years ago.
Wait a minute, where's Brian? Angela Lansbury's in there.
Angela Lansbury's in it. There's a thing where the puppet candidate keeps saying, there are 492 communists in the House of Representatives, and then the next time there are 312, and then the next time there's 14, And they said, I really like to nail down what number we're talking about here because I look like a fool. And Angela Lansbury's answer to him is, they're not talking about if there are communists in Congress. They're talking about how many. You keep doing what you're doing. And I think that's what he's doing with his wealth. He keeps moving the number, moving the goalposts. Oh, well, my name is my brand and it's worth X million or X billion even. There's no evidence saying how much this guy is worth. I mean, he owns property, but we don't even know that he owns the property.
We don't know if it's mortgaged to the hilt.
And we do know when he's failed. He's filed 6 bankruptcies.
6 bankruptcies.
And he's got all of these ventures that he said, were the best steaks in the world. I've got the best words. I've got the best people. It's
the best ties that are made in Mexico.
Well, how can we put in this guy's hands the U.S. economy, civil rights, foreign policy? I don't get it. I do not get how, even if you're a mad white man, that there's been a black man in office for 8 years, how you can vote for this guy. I just don't get it.
What do you think was his worst moment at the debate? I have one if you want me to.
Well, he effing lost it when she brought up Alyssa Machado, what's her name?
Alicia Machado.
Yeah, her.
She was the first Miss Universe. That under his ownership of the pageant.
You could visibly see he was shaking.
I thought there were 2.
And then the whole birther rant was my second.
Well, the birther rant where he says, I made him produce the birth certificate. I thought he just looked so stupid.
And I deserve credit for that.
Yeah, like it's you're like, what's that? Like you should be president because of that?
Well, and it was in an answer to diversity, wasn't it?
About how he should apologize to the black community across the country and to President Obama himself, and he says, "I say nothing." Right. What do you say to the community?
To the black community,
I say nothing.
Yeah.
And then the other one was when he just viscerally, visibly lost his crap over Rosie O'Donnell again. I just thought that, wow. And she deserved it.
One person can get under his skin like that.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
It's because she's not cowering in front of him. She comes back at him, and I think he's getting that way about Hillary. because she's not.
Okay, and
scared
here's
of
the
it.
one that I thought was one of the most damaging and should be, and I know they're preparing commercials based on this, and that's when she criticized his not paying taxes, or she gave the 3 reasons that he won't release his returns, and one of them was because he hasn't paid any taxes. And he said, well, that would make me smart.
Yeah. That makes all the rest of us who do pay taxes dumb.
We're all dumb.
Stupid.
Why aren't people who are poor, who need assistance, but who like,
Right.
he can be honest about things. Why aren't they completely offended by that?
Yeah, I mean, and we actually have a text from Brazil. Janeri, who's traveling, said the VP debate on the 4th is at Alexander's. The second presidential debate on the 9th is at the Roundup.
Okay.
So,
thank you, Jay.
yes, thank you, Jay. But yeah, and he is for it, he's not for it, he didn't say it, he did say it, China's this, China's not this. I never said anything bad about women except Rosie O'Donnell. He does.
Did you think he had a good moment?
No.
No.
I did. I thought, or a best moment.
I thought, yeah, okay. If you're evaluating on just his moments, he had better moments than others, but there were no good moments.
I thought he was best the time he agreed with her.
Yes.
Because what he was saying was, and I forgot what the issue was now.
Where he said, oh, well, she has lots of experience, but it's bad experience.
It wasn't that one. It was talking about some plan or some, what was it on? And he said, well, I generally agree with that. And then he gave his own shade of it.
Yeah.
Everything, political opponents don't have to be against each other. If you're for the war in Iraq, I'm against the war in Iraq, and if you're for women, I'm against women.
Right, it's not Red Rover.
Everything doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
There can be an issue where there are different shades, and you can discuss them. And that was the closest they got to an actual discussion. And because he wasn't blowing up, he just said, well, I tend to agree with that but. And then he gave his but.
And that was pretty early on in the debate. I mean, I gotta say, the first half hour of it, I won't say I agreed with anything he said, but he did kind of okay. And then he just ran out. He, everything he'd practiced, all of his temperament,
I think it was less than 30 minutes, but
okay. Yeah. Well, yeah.
It was more like 15.
And I'm sorry, if we're talking about stamina, if we're talking about fit for running the country, if we're talking about temperament, if we're talking about all of that stuff, because he accused her of not having the right temperament. If you can't make it through
temperament, again, that's one of those things. I have a bad temperament, so I turn it on you. I have no military record, so I turn it on you. Who does? Yours is a bad military record.
But if he can't last through a 90-minute debate, how is he going to last through negotiations about nuclear weapons? I mean...
and even the previous
ones... More countries should have nuclear weapons. What negotiations?
And all of those GOP primary debates... At one point, in and around when she did her 11-hour interview or testimony with Congress, he was saying that he was complaining about the 2-hour format for those GOP primary debates.
Right.
We're like, you can't last 2 hours, dude. Stamina.
Well, and to me, the most interesting wrap-up about the debate afterwards, the spin room and all this, is he went to the spin room.
That's unheard of.
That's unheard of, and that's a candidate in trouble. And you have major people asking if he's not going to bow out of the next 2 debates. I mean, Carville kind of said it, ha, 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 but there are people wondering if he's even going to subject himself to that. And someone said he has to. This cannot be the last impression he leaves with voters. And I was thinking, well, why not? His voters are going to vote for him anyway.
I think that discussion went on. And I think they came to your conclusion that he can't leave this as the last impression. They hired on Chris Christie to train him in how to debate because they were impressed with Christie and his debating skills because he did so well in the presidential race.
Yeah, he did so well in the presidential primary.
Nobody did. I mean, that field was so big, it got narrowed down to the loudest mouth, period. Nobody had time to listen to anybody. And I think that really needs to be looked at too. I mean, I think the debates, they had to split them up. There were so many candidates. They had 2 rounds of debates.
They had the kids table.
Yeah, they had the kids table for the first go, and I really think if there's that many candidates, then instead of a debate format, that there really should be like an interview format where you can actually hear what people think. And I don't think this would have happened. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think the loudest kid in the room, who ruffled the most feathers, who stood up on the table and yelled at everybody, got the nomination.
How do you think Lester Holt did as...
I thought he was wonderful.
Why?
He interrupted, and he interrupted Hillary more than he interrupted Trump. But he asked good questions, and he didn't let it go.
And do you agree with that?
I thought he could have done better in a lot of areas, but I think he did well in challenging Trump, for example, on what was constitutional and what was not, stop and frisk. He challenged Trump on a number of things about his truthfulness on, that's not true.
Well,
right.
and we need to wrap this up, but what I liked about it was actually more of a debate than most presidential debates are. Usually it's
talk.
Ask him.
He let them talk. He let them talk, and he let it kind of flow, which I thought was a really good idea. So, I mean, he didn't like strictly go to the next question when it was time to go to the next question. There was a good debate going on. He let it go.
And Erin, thank you for being with us.
Sure.
We'll be back with more Lambda Weekly next week.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.